Hey folks, it's Rob Flux here from Property Developer Network, coming to you for another Sunday session. And clearly I'm in a very different background today. I'm in the Royal Botanical Gardens in Melbourne, just enjoying a little bit of sunshine and the day off after our Melbourne meetup yesterday. So fantastic outcome with the number of people actually turned up there. Bumper numbers at our new venue at the Vibe Hotel. So looking forward to really grow that community and push that, I guess, to even bigger numbers in the future. Now, that said, today is open mic night. That's where you get a chance to send me all your questions up front and by clicking on the link that is about to appear below. And what that does is it sends me the question early in the piece, allows me to do a little bit of research where appropriate, and then I can answer your questions. Now, we've got half a dozen questions that are sitting in the pipe today, plus a couple more that came through that were a little bit more complicated that I'm actually going to be pushing into next weekend's event. So next weekend, for those who aren't aware, I'm running an event called Developer Launchpad. This is a one-day event where I'm going to go into my review of the market, where it's heading with all the issues and challenges that we've got sitting around us with interest rates and inflation and building materials and costs and all those sorts of things blowing out. Where is the market actually going? What can we actually do about it? I'm going to cover that on the Developer Launchpad next weekend. So please make sure that you do register early. There is no recordings, so we will not be doing a replay. Plus, we've got some fantastic giveaways if you want to actually turn up and participate on the day. This is a very active, I guess, webinar. So it's not just me delivering content all day, but you guys actually are going to be involved in the process as well. Get some learning as we go. So open mic night, as I said. Now, we've got half a dozen questions that have come in. So I'm just going to very quickly pop to the first one. And the first one comes from Ursula. So Ursula says, hey, Rob, thank you. Sorry, could you please explain land subdivision using a community title scheme? What are the benefits, if any, and what are the negatives? And if there aren't that many negatives, then why don't other developers use it? So Ursula, very, very good question, and thank you for the question. I guess firstly, it's very similar to what you would deem to be a strata subdivision in a townhouse or unit complex, where there is some dedicated land that is to, I guess, for exclusive use, and then there is also some community land that is for shared purposes. Now, typically, that's going to be things like driveways, bin enclosures, those sorts of things. And the reason why it comes about is because depending upon the size of the development that you're actually doing, if you're trying to meet council requirements with regards to road and road networks, then by the time you do footpaths and the road itself and the ability for people to park on the road and then footpath on the other side, that consumes a heck of a lot of space. And if you don't have a huge amount of land, then you might be able to get away with, instead of a road network, you might be able to come up with a driveway network, which is one, cheaper to construct, and two, you don't have to meet the council requirements, and three, it allows you to actually use a lot less space. You can actually typically fit more yield on the site. So that's why you do it. The pros and cons. One, pros, so cheaper. I guess the con for that, though, is that the finished product means that the driveway is shared between everyone. There's going to have to be a body corporate in place. The body corporate's going to have a sinking fund. People are going to have to contribute to that, much like you would with a townhouse. So that driveway actually gets maintained. It's not owned by any one individual owner, but rather it's owned by the entire community title. And so as such, you're going to have to contribute to that on an ongoing basis. People have to maintain that, do the gardening, those sorts of things. If there's any, I guess maybe there's some lighting along the footpath, you have to pay for the electricity through that body corporate, all those sorts of things. So it does degrade a little bit the resale price of the property, but you've got to weigh up whether or not the small hit that you're going to take from the resale of the finished product is going to be large enough to actually justify the saving in not having to construct a full road network. So they're the pros and cons in actually doing that. It's not a one-size-fits-all type solution. It's really on a case-by-case basis. You want to look at each project on its own merits and see how that's going. Now, there is, because I'm in a park, there's going to be a bit of noise behind me. I can hear some kitties. Hopefully it's not too distracting, but it is a lovely, lovely day. Okay, next question. Next question we've got from Narendra. So Narendra says, Hi, Rob. I'm in the process of building a duplex, but I'm having a hard time finalising the builder due to the initial quotes now being higher with many exclusions that weren't in at the first time round. So I'm thinking about, I guess, how do I actually engage the builder, and should I do that on a cost plus basis? Now, firstly, I'm going to explain what a cost plus contract is. So cost plus is basically where the builder goes out, gets quotes for the materials, for the labor, those sorts of things, and then puts a fixed price margin on top of the build. Now, on the surface of it, that seems like it's a really good idea. But the problem is that most bank financiers don't like it. And the reason why they don't like it is because there's actually no incentive for the builder to bring the cost down. As a matter of fact, there's incentive for the builder to bring the cost up, because if he finds a more expensive piece of material or a more expensive labor, he gets a margin on top of that more expensive price. And so there's no incentive to actually make that more cost effective along the way. So most financiers are going to struggle with I guess, allowing you to do that. So you've got to consider whether or not bank finance is actually important for what you're trying to do. And if so, make sure you speak to your bank and see whether or not that's a kind of contract that they like. Irrespective of the bank saying yes or no, it is a risky outcome going down that particular approach unless you have a very, very clear, I guess, eye on all of the consultants that are actually being engaged and visibility of all the quotes that are coming through, and you're able to control which one it's actually going to, which technically is the builder's job. You're actually going to take a lot of that governance over for them if you want to actually maintain those costs. So I would be super, super careful in any cost plus contract. It is one that can potentially blow out your costs majorly. So be very, very cautious on that one. Hoping that helps, Narendra. Now, next question. We're whizzing through these. These are nice and simple so far. But I've got a much bigger one here. So this one comes from Tom. So Tom says, looking for general advice only. Well, let me tell you, Tom, I can't give you specific advice. So that's a given. Tom has said that he will seek professional expert advice on his own personal circumstances anyway, but is wanting, I guess, my opinion. So that said, I have a residential property, currently one dwelling, in a self-managed super fund with an LRBA. Now, LRBA is, I can't remember the acronym, but it's, I guess, all to do with borrowing capacity and how you've actually got your loan. Limited recourse borrowing of something is what the LRBA stands for. Either way, I can't find any information whether or not a development approval for 4 new dwellings on the site would change the asset. In which case, does the development approval could that be sought with the LRBA in place? So the first thing I'm going to say there is, whenever we're talking about self-managed super funds, this is a very, very heavily audited activity. So you want to absolutely categorically go speak to your accountant on this one. No matter what you think I say, it's a must that you actually go need to talk to them, because there's some every year, I should say, your self-managed super fund will actually get audited. And so I guess if you make an accidental mistake, then chances of you getting caught on that are very, very high. So make sure you do actually seek that advice. Now, I can only speak at a very, I guess, high level here. I can't speak to the specifics of your particular case. But what I do know is that you are not allowed to borrow in order to improve the property. Now, if you have cash in your self-managed super fund and the cash is able to actually fund all of the improvements to that, then there is a plausible possibility that that might be allowed. But if you are trying to borrow, you will not be able to get the development approval. You won't be able to do any construction, any of those elements at all. So please, please, please go talk to your accountant. Make sure that that your circumstances actually will allow that if you've got cash in there. And I guess seeking the development approval itself is plausible if you have some cash without actually changing the borrowing capacity. And I say plausible, but if you're actually then going to go and construct, and chances are you're going to have to borrow in order to construct, then that is pretty much where you're going to break that system. So be very, very cautious on that one. Hoping that one helps, mate. Now, the next question we've got, Christine has a question. Now, this question is very similar to the previous one with regards to building costs, but my question is about developments that we have plans for and we're getting builders to quote on at the moment. So every builder that is quoting the development are telling me that the architect drawings are terrible and that they've been over-engineered. The problem is that this is actually costing us both time and money. It's actually going to cost us more in the construction period as well. And so her question is, do we go and try to tweak the existing architectural drawings or just flat out rule them out and start again and relodge a new development approval, or potentially see whether or not council will accept, if it's a similar footprint, whether or not they'll accept an amendment to the plans. Now, this is a really tricky one, Christine, because it's I guess not understanding exactly how bad your drawings are and what is actually there. If the builders are actually saying that that's been over-engineered, then you could be costing yourself tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars in construction costs. Now, if it's tens of thousands, then I guess a small tweak to the existing architectural plans using the existing architect is probably the right way to do that. If it's hundreds of thousands, then it might be one of those things where you need to start from scratch. Now, irrespective of whichever approach you go, my guidance would be get yourself a trusted builder early in the process. And say, look, when I get my architectural drawings done, I would actually like to run those past you as the trusted builder. I'm happy to pay for those for your time to actually assess that at that point in time. But I would like to know whether or not it is what they call value engineered. So value engineered means that they've actually looked at the designs and said, look, what you're trying to do, we can actually build cheaper by just moving the wall slightly 30 centimeters this way, or just slightly changing the kind of technology that you're actually using for your frames or your, I guess, footings or anything along those lines. Okay, so go and engage with that builder up front. That small amount of money that you spend in engaging the builder at that point will give you massive savings at the tail end when it actually comes to the construction. And it sounds like you've actually missed that step this time around. So with the existing plans, go back to those builders that are telling you what is, I guess, that it's been over-engineered, and ask them, okay, what are the elements that we could change here? Is it going to be a minor change, and can I actually go back to my architect, or is this really scrapping it? And the builder's going to be the best person, the best informed person to do that. The fact that you've engaged multiple builders means that, and they're both giving you, I guess, the same outcomes, I would be asking them to make suggestions as to where those savings might be able to be achieved. Then take that back to your architect and get where, if it's going to be minor in nature in amending the drawings, then you might be able to take that back to council and do what is called a generally in accordance, a GIA, generally in accordance amendment to the existing development approval plans. That is going to be by far the best approach. If the builders, on the other hand, say, hang on, this is just way over the top, they've gone all the way too far, then your existing footprint for your development approval, council has already said, look, these are the setbacks, this is the size of the dwelling, those sorts of things. You would have a much more successful chance in having another alternative design done within that same footprint, and council in theory should be able to just rubber stamp that very fast, because they've already looked at things like turning circles and car parking and your open space and all those sorts of elements. So now it's really just them approving the house design, so that you've already dealt with the majority of the issues up to date, and it's just really tweaking that architecture. So hoping that helps, Christine. It is a tricky one, but your builder is really your best point of call in this particular instance. Okay, next one we've got comes from Nikki. So Nikki says, any chance that you can show your RP data equivalent platform? Please pass this along to Rob. Okay, we'll consider it passed along to me. So the software that you're actually talking about, Nikki, is one called National Property Data. So National Property Data is something that have been working on for some time. I guess there's an entire team based out of New South Wales that are actually been building that platform for nearly 30 odd years. I guess under a different name. We have taken that over, myself and a couple of other directors, taken that over and taken it in a new direction. It was an in-house product before and not for commercial release. And so what we're doing is we're actually taking that out and doing things very, very differently. Now, I'm actually, by coincidence, in the next couple of weeks, going to be doing a technology review of all of the different platforms. So RP Data, Pricefinder, National Property Data, Archistar, Stash, and a whole bunch more. That's actually coming up in a future episode. So rather than stealing my thunder from that, I might just give you some tiny little tidbits now and know that I will be going into that in a little bit more detail. Some of the key elements that I guess the differences between the platforms is really the way that data is actually assessed, okay, and accessed more specifically. So almost everybody pulls their data from very similar sources. So you're going to get that from the titles office, you're going to get that from councils with regards to the zoning, you're going to get that from any of the listing data that actually sits out there on any of the sales portals and that sort of thing, like realestate.com and Domain, etc. But I guess once you actually have that data actually collected, each one of those bits of data sits in a silo all by itself. Okay, and so the challenge there is that the other platforms, RP Data and Pricefinder, what they do is they allow you to search just on one silo and then display the information from the other silos. Whereas National Property Data allows you to actually search across all of the silos at the same time. So you can actually combine a single search that says, hey, I want to know what has been sold in the last, what's currently on the market, I should say, what is zoned low, medium residential or R1, R2, depending upon the council that you're in, has 800 square metre land size, has a frontage of 20 metres, and is listed for sale, but has not actually necessarily actually sold, because sometimes an agent leaves it up, the ad, even though it's actually sold and actually gone and settled. So you can do really funky searches like that. The other thing that you can do in National Property Data is it's the only platform out there that allows you to do searches for splitter blocks, which allows you to find multiple lots on a single title that are pre-approved subdivisions effectively. So very easy way to go and fast track your development process if you can find those things. And they're everywhere, folks. There are, I guess, literally tens of thousands of those scattered all the way across Sydney and Melbourne, where everybody thinks that they just don't exist. Get yourself access to National Property Data and go and do a search. Trust me, they are everywhere, folks. So watch this space is what I would say, Nikki. And in a couple of weeks' time, I'm going to do a full rundown of all those platforms. So hold on to your hats. Lucky last question is from Don. So Don says, what is the most effective way of finding equity / serviceability or JV partners? It's a broad question, so any help that you can have to get me into the first deal would be greatly appreciated. So first thing I'd say, Don, is the next part of that question he asked is, when should I actually be searching for money partners? So the first thing I would be saying is, do not wait until you actually have the deal. Okay, you should be searching for money partners now. And it's super, super important that you're searching for them now, because if you wait until you have the deal, and everybody will tell you, hey, if the deal is good enough, the money will come, which is right. But the problem is, if you wait until you've got the contract, then at that point, you've got a very, very limited timeline to actually get everything done. You need to convince a complete stranger, I guess, in order to know, like, and trust you, then you need to convince that unique stranger to go and get their finance approved, to potentially do all their tax returns, to review your joint venture documents, to go and get legal advice. And you're trying to compress a whole bunch of stuff into a very, very limited timeline, which causes all sorts of mayhem. And it starts to make you look desperate because your time is ticking. And so you want to make sure that you eliminate that altogether. So the first thing you can do is build on the know, like, and trust element of that right up front, because nobody's going to invest money in you unless they do know, like, and trust you. So build that now, okay? You want to be building all the potential investors now and build relationships and value add to their process and that sort of thing. Show them what it is that you're researching, how you're researching, where you're researching, why you're researching, what are the outcomes of what it is that you're actually getting. Build that rapport, build that trust, so they can see that you're putting the effort in, that you're not going to bring them just a dud site, and that I guess by the time you actually bring something to them, it is super qualified. So that's the first part of that. Now, where do you find people that you know, like, and trust? Well, there's a secret tool, okay? This thing here, your phone, okay? Everybody in this device already knows, likes, and trusts you. Problem is that we're too shy to actually ask them for money in most instances. So you don't want to go and just go harassing people and say, "Hey, I'd like some money. What do you do?" Rather, you want to start talking about the fact that you are doing property development, that you are doing training courses, that you are turning up to meetups, that you are doing your suburb selection and your rough cut FISOs and all those sorts of things to narrow down your areas and actually find where it is that you actually wanting to do the work and why those deals are actually going to make sense. You want to make sure that those people have the confidence in you. And if you're not talking about that all the time, then how are they knowing that you're actually doing the work? For example, at work, when somebody asks you at lunch, what did you get up to on the weekend? Don't go, "Oh, nothing." Tell them, "Oh, I actually went to a meetup. This is what I actually discussed. This was what the industry expert was talking about. This is the fantastic outcomes we saw from the real deal." Tell them that you are super into this property world. And if they are not interested, they'll just glaze over and turn the other way and walk away. That's fine. No problem at all. But it's the people that actually go, "Really, tell me more." Those people are the ones that you're going to continue the conversation with. Those people are the ones that potentially will invite themselves into the conversation and say, "Hey, how is it that I get involved in what it is that you're doing?" Okay. So that way you're not ramming your solution down their throat, but rather you're waiting for them to invite themselves into the conversation. Because when they can see the effort that you're going to, when they can see the likelihood of your profit coming, that's when they're going to start to really want to get involved. So that's the first part, is your secret weapon, your phone. Okay. The second part, clearly networking events like Property Developer Network and others that are actually out there. Now, whenever you go to one of those, know that everyone there is looking for money partners. So if you happen to find someone that is a money partner there, it's like seagulls on a chip, and everyone's going to be jumping on that one person. So you want to be super careful in not overwhelming the person, because everyone is going to be overwhelming at that point. So you want to potentially just try to have a very brief conversation, but give them the business card, try and arrange something that is outside of that group. Because what happens is you start having the conversation, people start overhearing, and then everybody starts flocking in, and then that person starts getting targeted, right? So you don't want that to actually happen. So be super careful there. And I guess lastly, make sure that you're actually talking to all your professionals. So your town planner, your architect, your accountant, your civil engineer, your solicitor. A lot of these people are already dealing with people who are in the industry, who understand what it takes to actually invest in these kinds of projects, and they potentially have high net worth individuals. So your accountant, your solicitor, for example, have lots of high net worth individuals that might be looking to do something a little bit different across the board. So go and talk to those guys and see if they can actually introduce you as a warm introduction through the process. Once you've done that, the next stage is, now that you're building the rapport with the know, like, and trust, you want to tell them, "Hey, when a deal comes, we're going to have to act super fast," right? So I don't want to be putting you under time pressure when the deal lands. What we should do is use the time we've got right now while we're hunting for deals to do all the work that we need to do. Go and get your tax returns done and get that approved. Go and speak to your financial advisor or your broker and actually get pre-approval for your loans. Go and review your joint venture documents with your solicitor and ask any of the questions that you need. That way, what you're doing is you're getting all of that, the time-consuming stuff that is actually going to make you look desperate once the deal is there. You get that out of the way when there's no pressure, that you got lots of opportunity to actually talk to them nicely. And then when the deal comes, all you have to do is present to them the opportunity itself. And they're really, at that point, they're only making a decision on the deal, because all of the other decisions have already been made. They've already asked all their questions well and truly in advance, etc. So hoping that helps. Hoping that helps, Don, in actually trying to navigate you there. Now, there was only, I guess, those half dozen questions, folks. So if you want to be asking me questions. So open mic night is the first Sunday of every single month. So make sure you click on the link below, fill in the details. That's going to send me the questions so I can do any pre-advance work on that. And in the meantime, remember that we have the Developer Launchpad coming up next weekend. So that is the 11th of February. Saturday, it is a 9 o'clock kickoff Brisbane time. So depending upon where you are around the country, that is going to be different. It is a absolutely cracking day, and you're going to get absolutely everything that is in my head. And I'm going to try and, I guess, give it to you like drinking out of a fire hose, folks. So, but the whole idea is to show you how I think, to give you insights into how you can start to read the market and know what it is the market's actually going to be doing in the next couple of weeks. Anyway, I hope that is of help, folks. And so I can't wait to see you on our next Sunday session or at one of our upcoming meetups in the not too distant future. Till then, bye for now. Bye.